It's Rhema Afternoons with Tom and Di. And we catch up now with the lovely Lauren Parsons from Lauren Parsons Wellbeing, talking, I think, a really important topic today, conversation, but those difficult ones. How to have courageous conversations. Lauren, firstly, welcome to the show.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I can think of an instance recently, wrestling with do I, don't I, how do I bring up a conversation? How do I approach this? And I mean, so often we're in that situation, Lauren, and we'd really just go, let's just pretend and just ignore it and hope it goes away. But often that can be, that can create even more issues. So as we look at this topic, and I want to pick up on something that you refer to in your book, Thriving Leaders, Thriving Teams. And this is this idea of planning for a conversation. Yeah. I haven't really thought about the idea of actually planning a conversation. So take us through why and what this might look like.
Yeah, well, I think mastering communication is key to our well-being because it's so much of life. And oftentimes there's something that's perhaps been on your mind for a period of time and you're realizing that it's actually an issue that you do want to address with the person. Maybe it's something that you just decide, actually, I really want to draw a new line in the sand on this. And what's really powerful is I've actually got this thing called a Courageous Conversation Planner, where you go through and answer a series of questions just for yourself. By filling this in, it gives you clarity about what is the issue that I want to discuss, what's the outcome that I really want to see, what exactly do I want to happen, how, when, where. So you get real clear on that. And then you also want to ask yourself, why is this important to me? And actually putting pen to paper, writing that down gives you the impetus to get started and make sure you have that conversation with that person. And then, most importantly, think about how is this going to be beneficial for them. So the idea is that you actually go ahead and write down the answers to each of those things and then arrange a time, a suitable time to connect with that person. And what I've found is my clients that have used this, 95% of the time they've come back the next time we've caught up and they've said, oh, Lauren, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. And the reason is that they've gone into the conversation with a whole different mindset because they've come at it from this proactive, solution-focused point of view, and it gives them a lot more confidence.
So I'm hearing it's good to know your why. Why are you doing this? Why is this conversation important? All of that kind of thing. Is this a conversation, and you've talked about, planning out your conversation. Is this something you do not only in a work situation, but also on personal relationships as well?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I've had clients, for example, that they've used this to plan out what are we going to do in terms of Christmas this year between us and the in-laws and the assumptions that are always made and could we do it a little bit differently? So figuring out what they want that to look like. I've had clients who've had some really challenging situations with inheritance, money, and disputes between siblings and ultimately wanting to be able to, still have their family holiday together as a wider family. And actually for that client in particular, it wasn't that they wanted to be receiving any amount of money. It was really just they wanted the injustice of what had gone on in the past to be acknowledged and ultimately, ideally, an apology. I've also had it in work settings where it's something with perhaps a colleague who's constantly running late to meetings or not getting the agenda through on time. And so just being able to draw a line in the sand and put across in a really calm and productive way, hey, this is what I've noticed. These are some new boundaries I'd like us to set. How do you feel about that? Or even, raising it to someone's awareness. Sometimes the other person isn't even aware that what they may be doing is affecting you.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Communication being really, important for well-being. Just a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. I assume you don't necessarily take your plan and a piece of paper into the meeting. Like there's getting everything in line and going, right, I know where I'm going and my expectations, what I want to take into this. Are there some keys though in just the way we present, open, can connect, create an opportunity to talk about something healthy and also just avoid, I guess, getting into that trap of maybe catastrophizing or overthinking a situation before we get there?
Yes, yeah. I sometimes jokingly say, don't take your piece of paper and then wave it in the person's face saying, this is what you've got to do. But yeah, the planning sheet really is just for you beforehand. And what it does, gives you clarity. Most of all, it helps you kind of take the heat and the emotion out of what's going on and gives you real focus on, hey, this is the outcome I'd like to see. Also, if you start brainstorming what's going to be the benefit for the other person, you can remember to integrate that into your message. And often we don't do that. Whereas, you think as human beings, we're all ultimately motivated by what's in it for me. At some level, that's just how we're kind of wired. So if you can think, how is this going to benefit not just me, but the other person, and include that, that's just a key, I think, to influence.
Lauren, one last question before we go. What's the danger if you don't have these courageous conversations? What can happen?
Well, I think, sometimes that's a valid thing. Tom mentioned this at the very start. Do I have the conversation? Don't I? So that's the first decision to make, I think. But the downside of not having that conversation is that if that thing has been bugging you for all of this time and you're going to allow it to keep happening, that's kind of the thing you got to weigh up. Do you want to keep letting that happen for weeks and months and years down the track, or do you want to actually politely, respectfully, assertively stand up for yourself and create a better dynamic in that relationship? So, I'd encourage people to reflect on that, and there's no right or wrong answer. But if you weigh up the pros and cons on each side, it will help you understand, is this a conversation I should have? And then hopefully better do it with confidence.
The art of conversation with wisdom and the nuances around that, but some tools to help. The book, of course, is Thriving Leaders, Thriving Teams. Lauren Parsons with us. If you want to find out more, laurenparsonswellbeing.com. Lauren, thank you for your time on the show again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us on Rhema. Now, if you found value in today's content, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel with the subscribe button. This really helps us to continue to produce more quality content for you. And hey, if you'd like to stay updated and never miss any of our future videos, ring that notification bell as well. Don't forget to follow us on our other socials, which are in the description below. And until then, stay tuned.